are weeks away from the May 24th primary, and right now there are two Republican candidates running in the race for governor. One of those happens to be joining us right now in the Conduit Studios, Doc Washburn. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Well, thanks for having me. It's an honor. I appreciate it. I appreciate all you guys do.
Well, before we talk about your race for governor, I think a lot of people will remember you and what happened last fall. Cumulus, you have been on the air for a number of years.
Yes, ma'am.
Many of our viewers are faithful to listen to your show, but they will remember you were fired during, when vaccine mandates were at, peak, and they fired you for not taking the jab. Talk to us about that and what it was like going through that experience and then coming out on the other side.
Sure. So I came to Little Rock, Arkansas in 2014. I'd never seen Arkansas before. Before they flew me and offered me a job, and I got here as quickly as I could and started July 7th, 2014. I was with Cumulus Media, News Radio 1029, KARN, for like 7 years and 3 months, more than twice as long as I've ever been anywhere in my life. And August 8th, 2021, the CEO, Mary Berner, did a kind of closed circuit video for all Cumulus employees about how delighted she was that most Cumulus employees were vaccinated, but that she was angry for the people who were not vaccinated.
Wow.
And she laid down the law a month before Biden announced his vaccine mandate for employers with over 100 employees. She laid down the law. If you're not fully vaccinated by October 8th, you lose your job. Now, I guess they figured out that engineers are harder to come by the talk shows, because I know that of one specific instance in which they made a deal with the engineer. Okay, look, if you get tested twice a week, you pay for the test, you can keep your job without the vaccine. But, well, the CEO of Cumulus Media is not a radio person. They got her because they were going through bankruptcy, and she had helped another company through bankruptcy. She had no broadcasting experience, and she hired some other people who had no broadcasting experience. And, so anyway, so we saw that coming from a couple of months away. And a friend of mine and I had been talking about maybe buying a radio station. I got a unique music format. And he finally said, well, look, since you're going to be leaving Cumulus anyway, why don't you think about doing a podcast? I said, well, I appreciate your encouragement, but I'm not sure I could get a good return on investment for local advertisers. And he said, well, why would it have to be local? I'm like, wait a minute.
Right.
So Al Gore's interwebs go across state lines. I think I heard something about that. I felt like an idiot. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And right off the bat, so we started 4 days after my last day on the air at KRN.
Yeah.
We started the podcast at docwashburnshow.com. And immediately, anywhere from 60 to 65%, sometimes close to 70% of the people who download the podcast were from the other 49 states.
Wow.
We were getting other countries. I'm like, oh. Thank you, Mark Levin, for letting me fill in for you 11 times. Appreciate that, brother. Yeah, I owe you anything I can do. And then about a month after I was fired, Dan Bongino, who's syndicated by the same company that I got fired by, brought me on the air for 12 minutes. Let me talk about how and why I got fired. And that, to me, shows a lot of intestinal fortitude, if I may use that term, present company. I'm the president of his fan club after that, because it was on 300 radio stations, including the one I got fired from. And the local people didn't want me to go. My program director, general manager, they didn't like it at all. It was a cram down from corporate. And, you look at the board of directors and CEO of Cumulus Media, and they're all tragically woke. One of them was even an intern for Senator Chris Dodd. You're not going to find anybody that worked for Ted Cruz or Rand Paul. No. So anyway, so my phone started ringing, I guess, after Sarah Huckabee Sanders announced on Facebook that she was endorsing John Bozeman for re-election, who said horrible things about Trump. He's at least partially responsible for the violence on January 6th at the Capitol, could be criminally investigated and prosecuted. Now he's got Trump's endorsement. What do you think the odds are that Mike and Sarah did not tell Trump what John Bozeman said about him? I mean, they're taking him for a ride. There's no way Donald Trump endorses the guy who said that if he knows about it. Anyway, she also endorsed French Hill for re-election, who said the idea the election was stolen is a fiction and a fallacy, who said that Trump's rhetoric leading up to January 6th is unforgivable, who voted to keep Liz Cheney in House Republican leadership even after she voted to impeach Trump because he's such a strong conservative. She's such a strong conservative, who voted for Nancy Pelosi's sham January 6th commission, all this stuff. And Sarah's like, hey, want to endorse my good friend French Hill is running for re-election. And she got hundreds of negative responses.
Yes.
I mean, 99% of the responses were negative. And that's not hyperbole. I don't mean 85 or 90%. I counted them. And people are like, no, Sarah, what are you doing? We can no longer support you. You know, we're supporting Colonel Conrad Reynolds against French Hill. He's the real conservative. What are you doing? And so after that, my phone started ringing. People wanted me to run for governor. And I told them what I've always told people: you got the wrong guy. I'm not cut out for that. You know, I'm a talk show personality. You know, and then Sunday, February 6th, Jan Morgan called me. Now, Jan Morgan, who challenged Governor Hutchinson for the gubernatorial primary, Republican primary in 2018, is now challenging John Bozeman for the senatorial primary. And her response when I told her, no, sorry, no can do. She said, look, you don't understand what's going on here. We're about to lose our country. Good people like you need to stand up and run for office. You need to talk to your wife and pray about it. Well, that kind of hit me like a ton of bricks, because nobody ever told me that before. When we tell a Christian to talk to his wife and pray about something, well, I mean, you can't really say no. There's no downside to that.
Yeah.
Okay, Jan. All right. Well, I'll talk to my wife and pray about it. So talked to my wife and we prayed about it. And she said, look, this is way over my head. I trust your judgment. I'm like, okay. But I didn't trust my own judgment. It's not like in the old black and white movies on TCM. Hey, kids, let's put on a show. And it doesn't work like that. This is much more complicated. Yeah. So I knew that the Proverbs talk about the importance of wise counsel and talked about the fact that there is wisdom in the abundance of counsel. So next evening, Monday, February 7th, I met in a conference room at a church in North Little Rock, Arkansas, with 10 or 11 people. We kicked it around for 2.5 hours. And somebody asked me, so if you were going to run for governor, would it be just to publicize the podcast? Would it be to kind of try to make a point about to Sarah or something like that? Or would you actually be trying to win this thing? I said, oh, I mean, there's no reason to run for governor if you're not trying to win. It would definitely be to win. And somebody said, what would your top priority be if you're to run for governor? I said, to glorify God, because the Bible says you're supposed to glorify God in everything. And Jan Morgan, who's at the meeting, said, that's what I've been waiting to hear. So I've been trying to work with her on coming out of her shell a little bit.
Yeah, I know. You need to keep at it.
Yeah, she's wonderful. And so at the end of 2.5 hours, it was unanimous. Yeah, this is what you ought to do. There was not a dissenting vote. Wayne Beach gave me $100 and said, well, if you don't wind up running, just take me out to dinner sometime.
That's funny. Said, that's
sure.
So Wayne, yeah.
Sure. So I was scheduled to meet with Saline County Republican Women's Club the next evening to talk about, I guess, getting fired for not getting the vax and my take on politics and stuff. But they didn't know I was going to be announcing I'm running for governor. So I talked about what it meant that Sarah Huckabee Sanders endorsed John Bozeman, what it meant that she endorsed French Hill, what it meant that a lot of people were commenting on her Facebook posts that they were upset, frustrated, disappointed because whenever they would see her in public, she refused to answer any questions, refused to talk about anything. And also what it meant that when Governor Hutchinson endorsed her, she talked about what a great job he's been doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so wait. The guy who put a lot of small businesses out of business in 2020, the guy who made sure that State Senator Dan Sullivan's bill to give these small businesses back the money they've been fined by his health department inspectors about the masks, who never went to Walmart, Sam's Club, Target, Kroger, Lowe's, or Home Depot. They just attacked the small businesses. The guy who vetoed the bill to make it against the law to sterilize children. That's the guy who's been doing a great job. Mask mandates for 5-year-olds. That's the guy who's been doing a great job. And I just told him, I said, I don't know how you could be from Arkansas, be that out of touch, think Asa Hutchinson's been doing a great job. That's insane. So I told the ladies of Saline County Republican Women's Club Tuesday, February 8th, It costs $15,000 to file to run for the Republican nomination for governor. If the Lord provides the money, I'm going to file. I'm running for governor. And my next line was supposed to be, so what do you think? But they're already applauding. I'm like, oh, well, this is nice. And one lady gave me $200 cash. Another lady said, my husband and I want to donate $5,000 to your campaign. And 3 or 4 days later, I had 2 checks for $2,500 each in the mail. I'm like, what's going on here? Because people kept on complaining, how come we can't donate online? And we went through 3 companies and finally we got that set up. But we got more than the $15,000, just people giving us money or sending to the PO box and stuff like that. So,
well, don't you think from how that meeting went with the Saline County and the reception that you got, Arkansans especially are so sick and tired of, politicians who say they have an R beside their name and they don't vote according to the parties and principles of the Republican platform.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. And Governor Hutchinson is one of the biggest examples of that. And it's outrageous. And, people used to call my radio talk show last year and say, I wasn't a big fan of Mike Huckabee. He wasn't conservative enough for me. But I'm real excited about Sarah because she worked for Trump.
Well,
and I'm like, well, let's see how that works out, I guess. Because I didn't know at the time it was Leslie or Sarah. I didn't know which one.
Right.
But no, you're right. They ignore the Republican Party platform, which is a really good platform, because of corporate interests.
Right.
When Asa Hutchinson went on Tucker Carlson's show to try to defend vetoing the SAFE Act to save children from being sterilized, Tucker asked him, did Walmart or he mentioned another corporation, I can't remember right off the bat, but did any of these people call you and talk to you about this issue? No, Tucker, as I've said, I listened to the medical experts and they said these children with this gender dysphoria, it's wrong, it's harmful to keep them from going through this process. Because Tucker was trying to present him with evidence that if you do this to children, when they hit their 20s, the suicide rate's through the roof. And so the next, it was Walmart or Dillard's, what he asked about. The next evening, a lot of people saw the interview. They didn't see the update the next evening. He said, we had the governor of Arkansas on last night. He said he was not influenced by corporates, folks to veto this bill. And then he showed video from a few days earlier with Asa on a different Fox News show saying, we have major multinational corporations that are based in Arkansas. They're very concerned about this issue. And Tucker looks into the camera and says, so he lied to us.
Yeah.
So that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah. And so it's not only just these woke corporations. Conduit recently, we've actually put out 2 articles about the State Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
And that is another, people, your local, chamber, they're wonderful. They're there to, promote small businesses.
Yeah.
No, if you go back and see what they actually were lobbying for in the past session, it's against that bill that would protect children. It's about pushing for vax mandates within corporations. So how do you balance all of that?
Yeah, well, a great example, I think, is the guy who's the best governor in America, Ron DeSantis. Now, he recently signed a bill to make it against the law for teachers or any outside influence to come into a classroom for pre-K through 3rd grade and talk about gender or sex. Now, the liberals went nuts. It's basically a bill against grooming children. The liberals went nuts. It's the don't say gay bill, and the CEO of Disney pitched a fit. Major employer in the state of Florida. And Ron DeSantis got in front of a bevy of microphones at a podium and basically, in so many words, told the CEO of Disney to take a long walk off a short pier. I'm not going to let some woke corporation yank me around and yank the parents of Florida around and people who are concerned about the welfare of children. And, you like me, governor of Arkansas. I mean, I'll say, hey, great that Walmart has low prices every day and they employ a lot of people and et cetera, but I'm sick and tired of the Walton Family Foundation and the Chamber of Commerce of Arkansas shoving their tragically woke liberal ideology down our throats. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. The day that Asa vetoed that bill, the Walton Family Foundation came out with a statement just applauding him for trying to protect our
Tom
transgender children.
Right.
Yeah, Tom Walton, but I'm sure there weren't any dissenting votes on that board of directors.
Talk to us about school choice. That is, of course, part of the Republican platform. Arkansas has had a supermajority, Republican supermajority
for quite a while now.
For quite a while, but yet we still lag behind in school choice. One, why do you think that is? And two, if you were governor, I've heard you say I'm for real school choice.
Right,
okay,
yes,
what
ma'am.
does that look like?
Well, what that looks like is what some other states are doing is making sure the money follows the child instead of the failing government school. And we talk about failing government schools. Actually, they're not failing because they're doing exactly what I think they're trying to do. And all this critical race theory, 1619 project. There's actually, I found out a few years ago, and I've been trying to get the legislature to do something about this, but who knows, maybe in a few months I'll be in a better position to do that. I found out that in a 2011 special session, when the Democrats are still supermajority and had a Democrat governor, they amended something in the school handbooks, the public school handbooks for Arkansas. You're a bully if you discriminate against one of your classmates because of race, religion, ethnicity, gender identity. They added gender identity in 2011. Because the way I found out about it was a parent who had a child in Bryant High School and another one in Bryant Middle School, Bryant, Arkansas, a pretty conservative area, said it's in our school student handbook. You're a bully if you don't, acknowledge that Brenda is now Steve, or that Freddie is now Brunhild, or whatever. And so I looked, and sure enough, he sent me the screenshot, and I Googled the exact verbiage, and I found it in other student handbooks in different parts of the state. I'm like, what in the world? So I kept on researching, and sure enough, it was a bill they passed in 2011. And I told some state legislators about it who were shocked, horrified. It was before they got there, and they, it must be some mistake. It must have been just that school system. I'm like, no, look here. What? So that violates the First Amendment right to free speech and the First Amendment right to religion for our school children, and it's got to be undone.
Let's talk about economic development. I think, of course, Arkansans right now are so concerned about the economy, inflation. Gas prices are insane. Is it going to let up? If you were governor, how would you promote economic freedom? How would you help them? Does that look like additional tax cuts? What would you do to also limit the role of government in our lives?
Big time additional tax cuts. I wrote some notes down in the car on the way up. I want to dramatically reduce the size and scope of the state bureaucracy, enabling everybody to live their lives free of government interference. We got the state out there trolling mothers' Facebook pages who are just trying to sell used clothes that their kids grew out of. Oh, it's a new sales tax, sales tax. That's crazy. I recently bought a car from my buddy Mitch Ward over at Red River. In the interest of full disclosure, they're an advertiser in my podcast. But I got this 2013 Honda Accord, 85,000 miles, $15,000. I go down to DMV and they're like, okay, well, you got to call this number and get the assessment. Oh, okay, great. Oh, I over $1,000 sales tax. I'm sorry. I thought the guy who bought it knew already paid the sales tax. What are you doing? So we got to get rid of sales taxes on used stuff, clothes or cars or whatever. We got to get rid of the personal income tax. We got to get rid of the income tax of small businesses. We've got to pass some kind of law preventing assessors from jacking the value up of a used car from one year to the next. There are a lot of things we can do.
Let's switch gears to another issue that many Arkansans care about. As you know, there was a tragic shooting in Dumas a few days ago.
Yes, ma'am.
Something no community, no family wants to ever go through.
And they say it was two guys who had an argument, got into a fight, and then pulled the guns out.
It's so tragic.
And so you got 27 people get shot. I don't know if either one of the guys missed each other or if they both wound up in the hospital. But a woman was killed who had nothing to do with the fight. I don't think anybody had anything to do with the fight. And at a car show. You got toddlers in the hospital.
It's unimaginable. I'm actually from that area. It's hard to think about With that being said, with that happening, renewed conversation and debate around gun restrictions,
Sure.
gun laws here between our local lawmakers. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah. Your right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The most remarkable thing is when I argue on social media with the gun control people. We're talking past each other because the idea that criminals don't obey gun laws, they don't care.
Mm-hmm.
They want people like you and me disarmed.
Right.
We got this big country over our southern border called Mexico. And private ownership of handguns in Mexico is verboten. It's forbidden. I think there's one gun store in the whole country. It's in Mexico City, and that's for the government to buy their guns. So you would think if the gun control people, including the ones in our legislature, which will go unnamed, Greg Leding, if they were correct, then Mexico should be a paradise of peace and euphoria and the utopia. And I heard there's some kind of rumor going around now about cartels down there. And so maybe it's not as peaceful as some of these folks would have us believe, Joyce Elliott. But I mean, all the Democrats
I know, and they're lighting up Twitter about it.
All the Democrats are against Second Amendment, right?
Right.
I mean, I'm not missing anybody.
I don't think
it's
so.
not like back in the day in Arkansas, they said there were two political parties, the liberal Democrats and conservative Democrats. It's not like that anymore.
No.
I mean, the conservative Democrats realized at some point back, I better put an R by my name if I want to keep on getting elected.
Right.
That's a whole nother show.
It is.
But there are a couple of court cases I can't remember the name of, but Gary Epperson, Gun Owners of Arkansas, was telling me about recently that really make it look like this is like Leslie Rutledge was right when she came out with the opinion on Act 746 is a constitutional carry state. And I wish that more people in poor neighborhoods realize that constitutionally you can carry a weapon, and didn't think that this license and that training and all this kind of stuff, which is prohibitively expensive for them, was absolutely necessary constitutionally. The first interview I did when I was auditioning for the radio job in Little Rock, I was still in Panama City, Florida. The first interview I did, the first day, was Reverend Benny Johnson, Arkansas Stop the Violence. He is a pastor who is an African American and just grieving over all the black on black crime, the black on black violent crime, murders. He said if we could get rid of that, you get rid of over 90% of the murders in Little Rock every year. And I think that if more people in the black community in Little Rock realize that you can legally protect and defend yourself, and maybe we could get rid of that. But folks who are unarmed against an armed person with evil intent ordinarily doesn't turn out too well for them.
Right. I think right now, mentioning Little Rock, the crime there has just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
A lot of candidates in this race say that they fully support law enforcement officers. They back the blue. But then when you ask them specifics, okay, how are you going to make the community safer? How will you change course with this? It becomes a bit more gray.
Yeah.
So where do you stand with that?
Well, see, I was doing local talk radio when the current mayor of Little Rock was running for office, a guy named Frank Scott Jr., who made it very clear that he believes everyone is a racist. Implicit bias is what he called it. And so we got to have, consciousness raising training for cops to get over their implicit bias. And one of the biggest evidences, I guess, that you have it is if you say you don't have it.
Right. That's what they're teaching in our schools right now as well. So.
And he hired a horrible police chief, and the Little Rock Police Department. I know officers, and it's totally demoralized. And they're going to have to vote him out. A guy named Steve Landers, a car dealer in Little Rock, is running against him this year. They're going to have to vote this mayor out. And Steve Landers said the first thing I'm going to do is fire the police chief. And, I think the overwhelming majority of police officers are good folks who just want to protect and serve and go home in one piece. Body cams and dash cams are great things. But the morale with Little Rock Police Department is really low because the chief doesn't respect them, and neither does the mayor. And so it's bad. I don't know what else to say, but you got to change leadership.
Yeah. Let's go back to the Capitol just for a bit.
Sure, sure.
We have seen with Hutchinson, despite, like we mentioned, the supermajority, a lot of times it seemed as though the legislature really took orders from the governor at times.
Absolutely. I'm told that even more so in the House, a lot of these guys think it is their job to take orders from the governor.
Yeah. And so Arkansans are sick of that.
Yeah.
I think that they, and you alluded to this earlier, I think the thing that is such an unknown with Sarah Huckabee Sanders, we don't know where she stands. We have no idea really where she stands on these issues and what her policies would be, because there hasn't been any explanation or more depth into it. What does it look like? How do we not repeat that situation in Little Rock and have an independent legislature?
Go to elect.washburn.com. Look, I'll give you a hint.
Yeah.
I'll give you a hint of what you would do. Somebody sent me a little 1-minute clip from Channel 4029 in Northwest Arkansas with Sarah Huckabee Sanders, September 14th, 2020. And she's talking about what a good job Asa had been doing on the coronavirus. And I'm talking March 2020. I'm talking about the middle of September 2020. By this time, a lot of people are like, hey, man, you're killing us out here, man. You're killing us. No, he chose the middle path. He's doing it right and everything. No. So what that tells me is the next time they dream up some kind of catastrophe with a disease has a 99.98% survival rate, she would follow his lead.
Right.
I think we got a pretty good clue. Again, show me who you walk with, I'll show you who you are. And the fact that she worked for Donald Trump is not a good enough reason to elect her. I'm glad that the legislature passed a law. I think Dan Sullivan was a sponsor of that one, kind of clipping the governor's wings a little bit on emergency situations. Look, you can't just declare something like this and just keep on rolling over month after month after month after month. And somehow they got Asa to sign it. Well, wonders never cease. I don't know. I don't remember exactly, but I remember that it happened.
I know, yes.
I remember being thankful, because there's a reason that our founders, whether in the federal government or the state government, established 3 branches of the government. Our founders realized a whole lot more than a lot of people in politics do now, that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, because we're all sinners in need of God's grace. And so it has to be some kind of accountability.
Yeah.
You can't have a dictator. That doesn't go very well. There's this place called Cuba. I wouldn't want to live there.
Yeah.
Zimbabwe, Venezuela, Iran, wherever. But we got to stand up for liberty and freedom.
Okay, before we let you go, what would you want people to know that we haven't covered about your campaign?
Yes. We're cautiously optimistic, hoping that the United States Supreme Court will overturn Roe v. Wade. If it does, I'm told there is a law that goes into effect immediately in Arkansas outlawing abortion. That is by far and away the most important issue. The most important issue. We have laws against murder that cover everybody except for the most defenseless, baby still in the womb. That's got to stop. That's got to stop. A couple other things. We know that our Lord said, even as you've done in the least of these, you've done it to me. Okay. So we have a DCFS that regularly takes children away from parents who love them, haven't done anything wrong. My friends, the Stanley family, homeschoolers in Hot Springs, actually it's Crimes Against Children Division and Garland County Sheriff's Department who took their kids. DCFS is actually there saying, no, these kids, there's no abuse, and they got overruled. The only DCFS horror story I've ever seen where DCFS did the right thing. But anyway, in my administration, first of all, since we're the only state in the union that has a duplicate, you got DCFS over here under Department of Human Services, you got Crimes Against Children Division over here under state police. One of those is going away. That's number one. Number two, child welfare workers will have to wear a body cam when they're interacting with parents and or children. Number three, you got to give parents Miranda rights. Number four, you got to have a warrant. I was talking to Sheriff Lonoke County recently. He said a little while back, DCFS called, said, hey, I need a couple of deputies to help me take away 4 kids from these parents. The sheriff said, you got a warrant? And they're like, what? You know, a warrant, probable cause, Constitution. Ever heard of it? That's what, you know, we work under Lonoke County. I don't know about y'all. I said, God bless you. I wish all 75 sheriffs believe that. So that's very important. We have to stop allowing the state government violating parents' Fourth Amendment rights, taking their kids away for nothing. They're not even alleging there's a crime committed. We just don't like you, and your sister-in-law of your former wife lied about you, and that's good enough for us. Whatever it is. Yeah, but it happens. You know what happens. The other thing is the horror stories out of our nursing homes. Somebody sent me a TV report from a couple of years ago in Northwest Arkansas. Lady in her 50s went to a nursing home to recuperate from surgery, and the paramedics had called a couple of weeks later. She had ants all over her body. Now, I know there are nursing homes that do a good job and that take their patients seriously. I get it, but there are too many that don't. Day one, a Washburn administration executive order directing the Office of Long-Term Care agency and the state government enforce the law. You're supposed to be inspecting these nursing homes and making sure that people don't have bed sores and not being abused, and it's not happening. It is not happening. It didn't happen under Hutchinson administration. It didn't happen when Beebe was governor. It didn't happen when Huckabee was governor. And it's not like there weren't people out there raising the red flags and saying, excuse me, we got a problem. Yeah. It was very much in the public eye, and governors, whether Republican or Democrat, didn't do a thing about it. I will, and our veterans, I got a buddy named Mark Diggs. He has a nonprofit called Veterans Villages of America. And on a regular basis, he gets contacted by veterans who are homeless, who don't have enough money to buy groceries, whatever. And it's crazy because all these veterans are owed federal benefits for having gone into the military. And each county has a little office that the county judge is supposed to be, coordinating with the veterans and make sure they know that. And a lot of them hardly have any budget at all. And if I'm elected governor, I will establish an office in my administration to coordinate with the county judges to just make sure there's no excuse for veterans being homeless, for veterans not having enough money for a place to live and buy good groceries. And, unless they're disabled, for not being able to find a job, there's no excuse for that. We have to take care of these people who, put it on the line for us. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to get choked up.
No, it's that is a difficult thing, and you're exactly right. That is the least that we could do.
And a side effect of it would be if all the veterans are living a comfortable life as they should be, who knows? One of them might want to buy a used car. Another one might want to take his better half out to dinner, and that would help the economy also. Yeah. But the main thing is do the right thing by them. Yeah. Do the right thing.
Well, listen, good luck with your campaign.
Thank you.
We're excited to see you run. I know that a lot of the grassroots organizations are glad that you're in there so people can have a choice.
I appreciate that. And let me know when you interview Sarah, I'd like to hear what questions, what some of her answers are. Oh, I forgot. She didn't like to answer questions.
You're so bad.
I'm sorry.
You're so bad. Listen, your website?
electdocwashburn.com.
Okay.
And I appreciate y'all, appreciate the opportunity. It's an honor. And I appreciate everything that Joe and Brenda do. And again, it is possible to actually go to the website, electdocwashburn.com, and donate. if anybody wants to
We'll
do that,
send
we
people
appreciate
there.
it.
We'll send
Appreciate
people
it.
there on the website. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless you. I appreciate
You too.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.